Everything is moving so fast. It was only yesterday that I was complaining to my husband, Alex, about his mother, Lisa, that's been living with us since a year after we got married. Lisa was an old woman whose husband passed away years ago. She did not have any other children other than Alex who could take care of her. My husband, being the loving, caring person he is, and being close to his mother, wanted to take care of her. His mother agreed and moved in with us. It was just that Lisa hated me. We never got along, even while Alex and I were dating. She always accused me of stealing her only son away from her, even when Alex told her that he loves me. We got married without her approval and are still on very bad terms with each other. She would often start screaming at night, waking everyone in the household, along with Ava, our 6-month-old daughter. I caught her sprinkling salt all around the house and often found human along with animal nails. At first, I thought she just cut her nails in the room and the animal nails came from our cat, but they were always so many that I became suspicious. I talked to Alex about it, but he did not take me seriously and told me I was overthinking. But today, Lisa told me that she was not feeling well, and I called Alex, who was at work, before taking her to the hospital. On the way, her condition worsened. By the time we reached the hospital, Alex was already there with the doctors. After spending about an hour, they told us that there was a heart failure and the patient had passed away. Just like that, one moment she was here making my life a living hell, and the next, she's gone forever. I still can't wrap my mind around it or the fact that she's gone. I did not know if I should be relieved or sad. My husband was obviously heartbroken by the loss. I tried my best to comfort him, and now we're preparing for the funeral. It's been a week since Lisa passed. Things have gotten much quieter around the house. Most of the time, it's just me and Ava in the house. Alex comes home later after work, and he's been very quiet ever since his mother passed away. At night, I dreamt about Lisa, except she did not look like I remember her. She looked much older now and scarier with broken teeth, wrinkled pale skin, and messy overgrown gray hair. She wore a nightgown covered in blood. Around her feet on the ground were nails scattered about. I was on my bed, but I could not move. All I could manage to do was move where my eyes were going. I followed her movement as she moved her mouth, as if she was saying something, but I could not hear anything. It was just a senseless dream. The next day started like usual, and I woke up and tended to Ava while Alex got ready and left for work. Soon after that, a strange, unpleasant feeling crept over me. A feeling of being watched and followed. A feeling of danger, but I cannot explain what was causing it. I made 3 rounds all around the house, locking the doors and windows and checking the house, making sure Ava and I were the only ones in the house at the moment. Then, I went about my day doing chores and taking care of Ava. But the feeling did not leave, but drew stronger. While I was doing dishes, I felt something like bony cold hands gently wrapping around my neck, immediately reminding me about the dreams from last night, making my skin crawl. I quickly turned around, expecting to see Lisa's demonic face again, but I did not. Everything was normal. It was all probably in my mind. The dream was clearly getting to me and Lisa's death. I just needed rest. I was still not done with dishes when I heard Ava crying. Tearing me away from my thoughts, she was crying louder than usual. My mind told me to hurry, and I ran upstairs towards her room. I burst the door open, and then the crying stopped. I walked over to her crib, and my blood ran dry. I felt as if life left my body, and my whole body felt weak. Ava was not in her crib, or anywhere else in her room. I briskly began looking for her. Then I heard cries from downstairs. Not wasting a second, I rushed downstairs. I followed the sound into the living room where it stopped again. Not having any idea what to do, my eyes filled with tears while I desperately looked around the house. I thought I saw Lisa in the same white nightgown going into her old bedroom. I followed her, but as I was going to enter the room, the door slammed shut in my face. I tried opening it, but it did not budge. Then I heard Ava crying. Also, I discovered that the sound was coming from her room. I could hear Lisa's voice as she was muttering something, but I could not understand. I began yelling, "Give me my daughter back! Give Ava back!" while banging my whole body against the door. I did it a few times before it opened. I rushed inside to find Ava on her bed crying while the floor was covered in human nails. Not caring, I rushed towards my daughter, picked her up, and hugged her close while crying. I have no idea what had just happened, and I still don't know. I don't know if it's in my mind or if this actually happened. I don't know what I should tell Alex. He will think I am losing it. Hell, I think I'm losing it. No way of this is true, and I can't exactly tell my husband that his beloved mother is terrorizing me and our daughter. I'm just going to keep quiet until I'm sure that I'm not going crazy over some dead granny. The rest of the day went normally, which I was thankful for. The feeling of being watched did not go away though, but I kept Ava with me at all times, making sure she wasn't out of my sight or reach. I've decided to visit a psychologist tomorrow just in case, and tell her about my problems. I woke up again from the same nightmare, but this time I could hear what Lisa was saying. It was loud and clear, but I could not understand the language. I woke up again panting and sweating. Alex was now getting worried about me since it's becoming an everyday thing. He agreed I should visit a psychologist. The visit went well and she prescribed me a few pills to help me sleep better. I could not get the words Lisa was chanting last night. It was like they were burned into my memory. I was waiting to have some nightmare to see if I could understand what she was chanting. The rest of the day went by normally and it was finally nighttime. Ava used to sleep between me and Alex as I wouldn't be comfortable leaving her alone in her room. I still had not told him about what went down, but he agreed with my decision of our daughter sleeping with us. I had the same nightmare again. This time, Lisa was chanting in a louder voice. It was much clearer than earlier, but I still did not understand what she means. When I woke up in the middle of the night, I saw a shadow of a woman standing in the window. My body froze and I tried looking around. First, I laid my eyes on Ava sleeping and then Alex. I tried to force my arm up, but it was of no use. It felt as if someone had sticked me to the bed. I laid my eyes on Alex again as I wanted to wake him up and tell him about the shadow, but I could not take a single word out of my mouth. I looked at the shadow again and it was standing still. For a second, I thought it was something else casting a shadow because of the street light to calm myself down. It took a while, but once I kept my eyes on the shadow for the longest time ever, I didn't notice that it moved. I was now relaxed that it was just a shadow of something else. I shut my eyes and tried to sleep. After about what felt like 30 minutes, I looked at the window to find the shadow was now gone. I was surprised and chills ran down my bones. I moved my body and was able to do so. I got out of bed, looked around to figure out what could be casting the shadow, but there was no such thing in the room. I looked out the window, but nothing seemed unusual to me. I made my mind not to think about it and have a good night's sleep. I got back in bed, pulled the sheets up, closing my eyes. After a few moments, I woke up again having an uneasy feeling. I turned around and tried going back to sleep, but was unable to do so. I started sweating, so I pushed the blanket away, but then it was freezing cold, so I pulled the blanket up again frustratedly. All of a sudden, I felt something cold tickling my feet. I changed the position of my feet and then the feeling stopped for a few seconds, but started again. I opened my eyes to find Lisa standing at the corner of my bed staring at me. She had a big scary smile and angry expression on her face along with a bloody knife in her left hand. Before I could scream, she jumped right at me. I was about 12 years old. I stayed up at myself pretty late playing video games in our living room. It was maybe about 2 a.m. when our stove hood fan thing in the kitchen clicked on. It had a button that you had to push in pretty firmly in order to turn it on. Initially, I thought it to be odd. I walked over to shut it off. I got back to playing video games when it turned right back on, this time with a lot more apprehension. I went into the kitchen to see what the heck was going on. I thought maybe my dad was messing with me. I looked around the corner behind the fridge in our laundry room. Nobody was there. I turned it off and went back into the living room. Almost immediately after sitting down, I hear the audible click and the fan humming full speed. I was so freaked out I ran into the nearest bedroom where my grandma stayed. She asked me what was going on, and I told her about it. She got up, went to the kitchen and shut it off, came back, and about 5 minutes later it's on again. We both agreed that we could not go back down there until the morning. The next morning, my grandma got a cell phone call that one of her brothers had passed away the night before. I mean, it could be a coincidence, but either way it freaks me out to this day. And by the way, that fan has never done that again to this day. When I was a student at the University of West Georgia, I rented an apartment in one of the oldest houses in town, which had been divided into 4 units. 1 upstairs, 3 down. I was the biggest downstairs unit, and I was also the only tenant in the house at the time. When I went to sign the lease, the landlord said, "Before you sign, I have to tell you that the house is haunted." Honestly, that just made me more excited to sign. I never felt comfortable sleeping in the bedroom in the 9 months I lived there. I always slept on the couch in the living room with the TV on. One night, I woke up around 1 a.m. to the sound of a party in my bedroom. People laughing and talking and glasses clinking, that sort of thing. I listened to it for about 10 minutes until it slowly faded away. There were no other buildings on the street other than the public library, so it could not have been a party nearby. I'm convinced I overheard a ghost party in my room. I rented a friend's basement while I was working in another state for about a year. The basement was half finished, the walls were just the studs, cement floor, you get the idea. There was a lot of stuff in the basement. Not quite hoarder level, but more pack rat, I would say. Very cluttered with stuff piling up. It was a northern state, and when I first moved in, it was summer. I did not have any issues at all. I kept to myself mostly, did my thing, and there were no problems. The house, and specifically the basement, always had an odd feeling though. As summer turned into fall, then fall into winter, it got quite cold downstairs, so much so that it basically lived in a hoodie and sweatpants. Even when I went to bed for the night, I kept my hoodie on because it was pretty cold. I began noticing some things happening around that time too. A constant feeling of being watched. I would see someone walking into the next room before the wall studs out of the corner of my eye. Mood swings. Just some weird stuff. To be honest, I look back at myself during the time and I was acting completely different, and very much not the same person I normally am. Most concerning and scary was the recurring dream I have about a ghost. I was always in an unknown house, and this deformed, disfigured female ghost would always jump out from behind a doorway or a wall and scare the shit out of me. As per usual in dreams, you can't ever move either, so when I would try to run from the ghost, I couldn't move and she would always just be on the verge of grabbing me before I jolt awake. The dream became so regular and familiar that as soon as I saw myself in the same unknown house, I would tell myself, "Okay, she's going to jump out and scare you." But that never happened, and it always turned out the same. This continued for about 2 months or so until I couldn't take it anymore. I told my friend that I was pretty sure their basement was haunted. They proceeded to tell me that I was not the first person to mention that, and there were belongings in the basement of a loved one that had killed themselves. Needless to say, I worked hard to get out of that house, and a couple months later did just that. I've never had that dream again, and my mood swings have stopped, and I began acting normal again. It was summertime, and I was like 16 standing in my kitchen making some food. Now, my bedroom was directly above the kitchen and had a really creaky floor. No one else is home, and all of my animals were outside because it was a nice day out. I hear someone get off my bed. I could hear the 2 feet fall, and start walking across the room of the stairs. In order to leave the kitchen, you had to walk past the doorway, at the bottom of the stairs. I was following the footsteps as I walked across the kitchen when they make it to the top of the landing. As I move it to the doorway, all I hear is someone coming down the stairs, fast. I booked it out of the house and waited outside for a while. Went inside, no one was there. Never saw a person leave the house, plus, I was just up in my room and would have noticed a person in my room. There's no way to hide here. There's other stories, but that was what I remember clearly to this day.